Okay, so for our interview today, we have Mr. Allen, which is our supervisor. So first question: how can legal constraints, including content restrictions or licensing requirements in particular regions, affect your company's distribution plan or movie's final cut?
What do you mean by legal?
Or legal constraints like media law in general?
Well, every film has distribution rights for different countries. So if you have the rights in England or Australia, you may not necessarily have the same rights and availability of the film in Malaysia or Singapore, for example. And how does it impact film?
Like the company's distribution plan or like the movie's final cut?
Well, you need to see what the content of the film is as well, because not every film is successful in every market in the world. Say if you're shooting for example, a Malaysian film talking about Malaysian life, it will be very, very difficult to sell it in South America, or very difficult to sell it in Europe or in America, for example. But if you just sell it within Asia, then there's a higher possibility of it being picked up based on the content. So that's why sometimes it's best to just do a topic that's international and can relate to all people.
All right, so for the second question, how does the amount of money needed to start new production slates or distribution channels restrict the type of content to which you may invest, such as like high entry costs and so on?
Well, budget's very important to make a film. Without a budget, you can have a very tough and challenging time. However, more budget doesn't mean that your movie is always going to be better. Sometimes with less money, movies are made more effectively and better. I think ultimately it's not just about the money. Filmmakers need to focus on the story. The story and the content is the most important part. When you have a really good story and really good content, and if you execute it well, that will make it a success, not based on how much money or the budget that you have.
How about regarding the distribution channels that may restrict the type of content?
Distribution channels that might restrict the type of content. Well, I mean, using audience studies as an example, which is a module at Taylor's University in digital media production. Say, for example, a movie with homosexual or transsexual content may not sell in Malaysia, may not be shown in Malaysia because of its content, because of the sensitivities and because of censorship. So not all films will sell in some markets, and say, for example, if there's a film, maybe, if there's a film that's criticizing the government and the country is very strict on people not speaking up or speaking out against the government, then they may not want to show it in their country because it might influence their people if they were to screen it or show it.
So next one, could you give an example of a situation where a generic or low-risk genre was preferred over a more creative one due to pressure to increase audience numbers and achieve economies of scale, as in the mass market pressures? in genre?
Oh. Low budget film. It wasn't low budget film, right? Oh, read the question again.
An example of where a generic or low risk genre preferred over a more creative one due to pressure to increase audience numbers.
I think the prime example of this where filmmakers go for the low risk instead of something that's creative is something that happens in Hollywood, for example, even now, where they make superhero movies or things that sell popcorn films. So there's a real preference for that. The budget might be 250 million to make it, but then it makes $1 billion. So studios prefer to make those kind of films because they earn money, they earn more money, and unfortunately, creativity is important to them, but money is more important. It's more of a priority. So, say for example, talking about representation, maybe it's a film about Asians in Asian culture in America. There's a less likelihood that they would make that because subsequently it might earn less money, and so then they would probably prefer to choose an Avengers film, a Mission Impossible film, because they know, or Jurassic Park, whatever, Jurassic World, because they know, oh, okay, this is a safe formula. This is tried and tested based on past results of movie tickets and then they prefer to make these shows rather than take risks and make something new because there's less guarantee and quite possibly less money.
So, in your experience, how frequently are the gender or cultural stereotypes exploited as safe or efficient shortcuts to effectively communicate with a large audience, and what are the commercial justifications for this?
Again?
In your experience, how frequently are gender or cultural stereotypes exploited as safe or efficient shortcuts to effectively communicate with a large audience, and what are the commercial justifications for this, such as like the gender and cultural stereotype representations on screen?
Gender or cultural representations. Well, I think at the moment there's a big thing that's going on with Sydney Sweeney at the moment, as to how she's using her looks and her body to sell tickets for people to watch her shows. I think that's a very big issue right now. I also feel she's a smart woman. She knows how to sell herself and her films and her TV series that she's making. I also feel that her marketing team are also probably capitalizing on that too.
She's doing I think the latest was a boxing film,
Yeah.
with a biopic.
Which has been a flop. It hasn't even got its budget back. I think she's also doing Handmaid's Tale or something at the moment as well with Amanda Seyfried. So yeah, it's right now with her, it's a bit of a touchy subject because she's, in one way, some people might say that she's empowering women, but on another scale, people might be saying that she may be degrading women by what she's doing. Doing her jeans advert, for example. Yeah, so so in terms of gender, I think it's a bit of a grey area right now, and also because it's a bit different nowadays. It's a lot more complicated. Last time it was very clear, male, female. Now we're going into gender neutrality and all these and all these kind of things. So I think it's a lot grayer than it used to be. In terms of culture, it's very easy for Hollywood, especially, I think. Simu Liu from the Avengers cast, Shang-Chi, recently said that there's not enough representation, there's not enough roles for Asians. And it's correct, actually, because I have known about this issue since I was in university. This has been an issue. And also kind of was an obstacle and a roadblock for me also getting into the industry in England last time because of my color of skin and my race. So, and it's still the same thing 20 years on. So I think using Hollywood as an example again, I think it's just very easy to not make films that are representative of the races and the cultures. It's just very easy to just cast a white person, for example, or a Caucasian person. Or to just change maybe to change a character. Maybe a character's originally an Asian character or a black character, and then to just rewrite the character as a white or a Caucasian character. It's just easier to cast from their perception. Yeah.
So next one would be, how much do corporate owners' profit-driven objectives affect the choice of plots, and how does this impact on the variety of stories that the general public is exposed to?
People, I think corporate people and funders like to go for what is safe most of the time, in my experience. And I think right now, especially because there's so much data, everything is very data driven. So it makes things, in my opinion, it's not much fun anymore, or as fun as it used to be. Because everything is about data. What's the data say about what the audience wants to watch? What does the data say about how many tickets are we going to sell? So everything is very safe as a result. When you always look at data, everything is very, very safe. Rather than let's be creative, let's be open, let's try it out and see whether it works or it doesn't work. Now everything's all about whether it's guaranteed or not guaranteed to be a success. So from a corporate point of view, of course they're funding these projects, so they want some sort of guarantee for their money. But even that, it doesn't work. There are so many films out there that just have not worked, even though corporate wanted this particular film to happen, but it didn't work. Because I think audiences, in my opinion, they're getting tired, jaded of the same thing.
Franchises.
Yes, and so when an original film comes around, audiences go, "Wow, I really, really want to watch that," rather than, "Oh, it's another superhero."
But the data can't really prove that.
Correct, because unfortunately and fortunately, audiences like to go for popcorn films. They want to see their Mission Impossibles and their explosions, or Tom Cruise. They want to see it. Yeah, correct. And so, and not everybody is like, "Oh, I want to see something new. I want to see something different." Yeah.
So the next would be, what component of the existing media regulatory framework would you modify and why to better support your business and promote cultural values?
In terms of what country?
In terms of what? In terms of like policy impact?
I think the major issue probably around the world is censorship. Saying when there's censorship, then it stops filmmakers and storytellers from making whatever they want to make. And also when there's some sort of censorship is basically control. A government wanting to control the narrative or the people or how they see things, or they want the audiences or the public to not experience certain things, and that's when censorship comes in. And I think that's a double-edged sword, because now with the internet, people will be able to find it. Even if it is censored in one country, we can go and find an uncensored version, and it will spread like wildfire. So what the government are trying to stop, or any government are trying to stop in some countries, ends up being ineffective. And I think with censorship, it also affects the next generation, young people, because maybe they can go very far in life, or they've got some story to tell, but because of some sort of censorship, they're stopped, or feel like they're imprisoned, or they feel like they cannot be free to tell their story, and then it kind of limits them in what they want to do, and limits their potential ultimately. Yeah. So I feel like censorship is the main issue in a lot of countries around the world. And also, I think we're also living in a very sensitive time too now. Woke culture is very big. People get very offended by very small things and minor things compared to what happened 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Cancel culture is very big too. Somebody might say something and then people might cancel the person. So, and in a way, that is censorship too. You should, yeah.
How about in terms of like to promote like cultural values when it comes to the censorship? Like, would it hinder or without it?
Yeah, like last year when I interviewed the director of
Oh no.
last year when I interviewed the director of for Tiger Stripes, the film that won some awards at Cannes.
Ooh.
When I interviewed Amanda Nell Yu, her film was not available in Malaysia to show in Malaysia because there was some sensitive cultural issues about the main character being a Muslim, and then the topic is about her the child going through puberty and periods and all these kind of things, and so it got censored in Malaysia. So culturally, it wasn't accepted by in terms of governmental establishments, and so that was a bit of a shame, because a film like that would have showcased the challenges that Malaysia is going through, and how it, whether it's frowned upon or not frowned upon. It would have been nice to have seen it in Malaysia and also on a global scale, that everybody can understand about Malaysian culture, rather than hiding the fact that it's a bit sensitive and all these kind of things. Yeah.
So it's hindered by the law or whatever, censorship.
Yes.
So moving on, how do audience expectations of cinema films in those markets change as a result of national or local cultural regulations, such as in language restrictions and content quotas? And how do you adjust to them?
Again.
How do audience expectations of cinema films in those markets change as a result of national or local cultural regulations, such as in language restrictions and content quotas, and how do you adjust to them?
Oof.
Wait, I did this one.
How do audience expectations of cinema films in those markets change as a result of national or local cultural arrangement, such as language? How do audience expectations of cinema films in those markets change? Audience expectations.
You just choose one. Just choose one.
Such as language. I think it's a bit difficult for audiences. I think it also links to, you know, like for me as a lecturer at Taylor's, I bring up the topic of identity, race, and culture. So like race, for example, we talk openly about race and culture, whether it's Malaysia, whether it's China, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Pakistan, and that is to show, and that is to showcase and to introduce students to that these are the realities of some of these countries. I think if we're talking about Malaysia, it can be a bit challenging because locally and nationally there are some topics that are restricted. Nationally and locally there are some topics which are restricted that we can talk about in Malaysia that are frowned upon. Say, for example, the 3 R's: religion, race, and loyalty. So when these topics are spoken about in public, people get a bit sensitive that they might get, you know, punished or something.
Okay.
And so it's like, I think as a result of, like for example, if you're not allowed to talk about this or about the 3 R's, then people's mindsets in the public space, doesn't matter whether you're from KL, Selangor, Penang, Kelantan, Johor, Terengganu, people's perceptions and mindsets are going to be very narrow when you cannot talk about certain things. Rather than you can talk about anything you want, and then people have a wider scope of mindset and opinion, and yeah. So I feel there is a limitation there.
Sorry. Moving on. What is the long-term impact on audiences' expectations for narrative diversity when a movie exploits widely accepted gender or cultural stereotypes? And how does this decision take advantage of pre-existing audience expectations to attain widespread appeal? Wow.
So long.
Is this?
What's the long-term impact on the audience's expectations for narrative diversity when a movie exploits widely accepted gender or cultural stereotypes? Who's coming up with these questions? What is the long-term impact on an audience's expectations for narrative diversity when a movie exploits widely accepted gender? I think for audiences' expectations for narrative diversity, when there are some gender or cultural stereotypes, it's sometimes difficult to get out of these stereotypes. Because sometimes we've got this preconception of something or someone, Like, for example, if a woman doesn't dress up in a dress, and she wears more suits, then audiences may say, oh, maybe she's not very feminine. Maybe. Or, why has this woman got short hair? Or, why hasn't she got long hair? Or, why has this person got a tattoo? Is this person a bad person because they've got a tattoo? You know, so I think these kind of things are. It doesn't really help the situation because unfortunately, we live in a society that can be quite judgmental and too quick to jump on things that happened. Interestingly enough, there was a TV host in England, a very famous TV host. He was on holiday, and then somebody was walking down the street with a phone, and they saw him. He's in his 60s, and he was walking with a young lady, and somebody was shooting a video of them, and then the video got online, and then they were questioning why this 60-something-year-old man was dating or with a young woman. And so this 60-something-year-old TV host is called Gary Lineker. He had to reply to this message, and he said, that's his daughter-in-law. They were walking to go and get medication for his son who was sick. And so you could see the perception of the people were like, what is this old guy doing with a young woman? But when it's the camera, nobody gave the person that shot it the permission to shoot that video. And it says a lot about society and for some people as well, that they can judge and go, what's this old guy doing with this young woman? But to be honest, none of it is not anyone's business. It's his business. It's his choice if he were to do that. But that's not true anyway, because he's with his daughter, right? So I think it's like, I think the media plays a really, really huge part in things, and it can influence things positively and can also influence people negatively too. And there needs to be some sort of regulatory body or some sort of regulations or rules or laws. Because fake news now is huge, so I think that's a big concern.
That's all.
Okay, for the last question. How do the audience's expectations about film's message, cultural alignment, or perceived quality change when government support or selective funding are available for particular kinds of content? This includes like the governmental interference, patronage, or funding. Yeah.
How do the audience's expectations about the film message, cultural alignment, perceived quality change when governments and selective funding? I guess for this question, it depends on the country and the government. But some countries might want to support and fund only specific types of content, maybe pro-government. And then some countries are very open, they support all sorts of content. I think it's a very tough question to answer because it's very different from country to country and region to region around the world. And like in audience studies, a module that I teach in Taylor's, we speak about the fact that, say for example, the topic of homosexuality or transsexuality, audiences in Asia are probably not very ready to watch these kinds of films and to talk about these topics openly. And so the only way these topics will feel comfortable is when the governments or bodies are able to fund these kinds of films. Like if you were to go to Europe or America, or Australia, they're very open to show these kinds of films, or Taiwan, for example. They're able to delve into these kind of topics. So then, as a result, if governments are able to do that, or bodies are able to do that, then the people will also be able to be more accepting of such things. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I
Okay.
think that's great.
Thank you.
I think,
sir.
yes. We have completed. Thank you so much, Mr.